Africa, a continent rich in resources and diverse in cultures, yet it remains on the periphery of global power. The history of Africa is interwoven with exploitation and subjugation. Colonialism, with its brutal legacy, stripped the continent of its resources and dignity. The Berlin Conference of 1884 carved up Africa like a cake. European powers drew arbitrary borders, disregarding existing ethnic groups and kingdoms. This division sowed seeds of conflict that linger to this day. The post-colonial era offered a glimmer of hope. Many African nations gained independence, but the transition was often turbulent. Western powers, while relinquishing direct control, continued to exert influence. They propped up puppet leaders who served their interests. This neo-colonialism perpetuated Africa's economic dependence. The Cold War further exacerbated divisions. African nations became pawns in the ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. Superpowers fueled proxy wars, turning brother against brother. The scars of these conflicts are still visible today. Decades of conflict and instability have taken a toll. Despite these challenges, Africa possesses immense potential. It is a continent brimming with youthful energy and creativity. However, realizing this potential requires confronting uncomfortable truths. Africa's marginalization is not merely a consequence of external forces, it is also self-inflicted. Africa's plight cannot be solely attributed to external factors. Internal weaknesses play a significant role. Governance failures are rampant across the continent. Many African leaders have prioritized personal gain over national interest. Corruption is endemic, diverting resources meant for development into private pockets. The lack of accountability and transparency breeds distrust. Citizens become disillusioned with their governments. This apathy creates a fertile ground for further corruption and mismanagement. The rule of law is often weak or selectively applied. This creates an environment of impunity where the powerful act with disregard for the law. The absence of strong institutions further exacerbates the problem. Weak judiciaries are unable to hold leaders accountable. Parliaments are often rubber stamps, lacking the independence to challenge the executive. This lack of checks and balances allows corruption and abuse of power to flourish unchecked. The consequences of governance failures are dire. They hinder economic growth, deter foreign investment, and perpetuate poverty. The lack of basic services like healthcare and education further marginalizes vulnerable populations. Without good governance, Africa cannot hope to claim its rightful place on the global stage. Africa's fragmentation is another significant factor contributing to its marginalization. The continent is a patchwork of over 50 countries, each with its own interests and priorities. This lack of unity weakens Africa's collective bargaining power on the global stage. Regional integration efforts have been plagued by inertia and mistrust. The African Union, while a noble aspiration, has yet to live up to its full potential. Internal divisions and a lack of political will hinder its effectiveness. Africa's voice remains fragmented, unable to speak with one voice on issues of global importance. The absence of strategic alliances further weakens Africa's position. In a multipolar world, strategic partnerships are essential for advancing national interests. However, African nations often find themselves isolated, lacking the leverage to negotiate favorable deals. This lack of unity has real consequences. African countries are often outmaneuvered in international forums. They are forced to accept unfavorable trade deals that benefit developed nations at their expense. Their voices are drowned out in global debates, their concerns ignored. Corruption is a cancer that eats away at the fabric of society. It is a betrayal of public trust and a major impediment to Africa's development. Corruption takes many forms, from petty bribery to grand larceny. It permeates all levels of government, from low-level officials to high-ranking politicians. The consequences of corruption are devastating. It diverts scarce resources away from essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. It discourages foreign investment, as businesses are wary of operating in corrupt environments. Corruption undermines the rule of law, erodes public trust, and fuels cynicism and despair. The fight against corruption requires a multi-pronged approach. It demands strong institutions that can investigate and prosecute corrupt officials. It requires transparency and accountability in government so that citizens can hold their leaders to account. And it requires a change in mindset, a rejection of the culture of impunity that allows corruption to thrive. Section 5. The crutch of aid, fostering dependency, stifling growth. For decades, Africa has been a recipient of vast amounts of foreign aid. While well-intentioned, this aid has often had unintended consequences. It has fostered dependency, stifled initiative, and created a culture of handouts. Aid has often been used as a tool of foreign policy, with donors attaching conditions that serve their own interests. This dependency on aid has undermined Africa's ability to chart its own course. It has created a vicious cycle of reliance where governments become beholden to donors rather than their own citizens. This undermines accountability and perpetuates the very problems that aid is supposed to solve. Instead of fostering self-reliance, aid has often created a culture of dependency. Governments have become accustomed to receiving handouts rather than developing sustainable solutions. This has stifled innovation and entrepreneurship, hindering Africa's ability to unlock its economic potential. Section 6. Towards a New Dawn. The imperative of strong leadership. Africa's renewal hinges on strong and visionary leadership. Leaders who prioritize the interests of their people over personal gain. Leaders who are committed to good governance, transparency, and accountability. Leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo and fight for Africa's rightful place in the world. Africa needs leaders who will invest in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Leaders who will create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive and create jobs. Leaders who will empower women and youth, recognizing that their contributions are essential for Africa's progress. Strong leadership is not about wielding power but about empowering others. It is about serving the people, not being served. It is about humility, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to the common good. Africa needs leaders who will inspire hope, not despair. Leaders who will unite, not divide. Leaders who will lead by example, not by decree. Section 7. Unity as strength, forging a collective African voice. Africa's fragmentation is a serious impediment to its progress. A divided continent cannot speak with a unified voice on the global stage. It cannot negotiate favorable trade deals. It cannot effectively address transnational challenges like climate change and terrorism. Regional integration is essential for Africa to realize its full potential. The African Union must be strengthened and empowered to play a more proactive role in continental affairs. Artificial borders inherited from colonialism must be seen as bridges, not barriers. Intra-African trade must be promoted to reduce dependence on external actors. A common market, with free movement of goods, services, and people, would unleash Africa's economic potential. It would create jobs, boost innovation, and improve living standards. Section 8. Economic emancipation, breaking the chains of dependency. Africa must break free from the shackles of economic dependency. For too long it has been reliant on the export of raw materials, while importing finished goods at inflated prices. This has resulted in a situation where Africa's resources are used to enrich others, while its own people remain mired in poverty. Industrialization is key to Africa's economic transformation. Value-added processing of raw materials within Africa will create jobs, generate revenue, and reduce reliance on imports. Investing in technology and innovation will allow Africa to move up the value chain and compete in the global marketplace. Africa is endowed with vast, renewable energy resources. Harnessing these resources will provide reliable and affordable energy, essential for industrialization and economic development. It will also help to mitigate the impacts of climate change, which disproportionately affects the continent. Section 9. A call to action, reclaiming Africa's destiny. Africa stands at a crossroads. The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but also with immense opportunities. The time for lamentation is over. The The time for action is now. Africa's destiny lies in the hands of its people. It is up to them to rise to the occasion and claim their rightful place in the world. This is a call to action for African leaders to govern with integrity and vision, to prioritize the needs of their people over personal gain, to invest in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, to empower women and youth, to unite the continent and speak with one voice on the global stage. This is also a call to action for African citizens, to hold their leaders accountable, to demand good governance and transparency, to reject corruption and embrace integrity, to be active participants in the development of their nations, to work together to build a better future for all Africans. The time for Africa is now. Let us seize this moment with courage, determination, and unwavering belief in ourselves. Let us build an Africa that is prosperous, peaceful, and just. An Africa that takes its rightful place as an equal partner in the global community.